about how Hackensack Meridian Health is providing you the best healthcare during this pandemic, visit hackensackmeridianhealth.org/getcarenow. Sponsored by Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation and aired by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
Morris County needs our Spanish-speaking community to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for housing and child care programs, less for schools and student lunches, less for senior citizens, less for community health care. Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census, online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, Social Security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and aired in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com. With your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, the Phoenix Tube Company, the law firm of Declator Cohen and DePrisco, Solomon Jewelers, and General Needs Charity, serving our homeless veterans with dignity. And now, here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you, Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Apiece with you this Sunday evening. No AJ Carter. AJ Carter is on the ranch someplace with you in a Cespedes. He's opted out. We don't know if we'll ever see him again.
He opted out?
I think
I wouldn't think he would go that way.
Either he opted out or he checked that one.
Well, I'm happy to have power. You lose power this week?
No, I didn't actually.
Oh, okay.
I did actually see AJ this week. I was at the supermarket and I saw him on the side of a milk container. So,
what about you, Mike? You lose power?
No.
Oh, you guys are left. All right.
It is now time for the Capcom Major League Baseball report. With baseball underway, it means that the warm weather is here, and it's a great time to keep those windows and doors open. Let the fresh air in. Keep the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty and a patented speed reducer, so it will not snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for free estimates. Purchase a unit and mention Sports Talk New York and get it with free installation. That's 631-440-1100 or visit www.clearviewlongisland.com. How you doing, Johnny? Johnny, you there? I think we lost John. No, John, you there? No, we lost John. All right, we'll get him back. Maybe John is someplace with AJ.
Yeah, everyone's hanging out with you, Johannes.
So let me ask you a question. You guys, you're younger than I am, and you love baseball. What have you thought so far of baseball this season? Are you enjoying it? Is it watchable for you guys? Do you like the fact these 7-inning doubleheaders, the extra inning games with runners at second base?
I haven't seen too many of the extra inning games. I've liked it so far. I've noticed, and I was going to ask John, a lot of the pitchers are going down. So it might not be that we don't finish the season, but a lot of the pitchers aren't going to be finished in the season.
Right. Absolutely. That is a question. All right, we got John. John, how you doing? John? All right, I think we're having issues with the phone lines today. So, no, we don't have John. All right, so very interesting. This could be a very interesting show tonight. No phones.
Yeah, now I can hear you better.
Now we got John. All right, John, there you are. All right, Johnny.
Sorry about that.
I was just asking the boys if they're enjoying the baseball season, and they are. for me, I like it. I like the intrigue with these extra teams. But what Ryan just said is true. These pitchers are going down left and right, and we might see the 9th or 10th pitcher on the depth chart come playoff time for these teams. Why do you think the pitchers are having such a hard time so early on, in this season with so many injuries happening?
I think it's the same reason everybody's having problems with injuries. It's just when you're a ball player, not that I'm a ball player, but ball players are used to routines. And ball players have routines of getting ready for 6 weeks and then getting into a 162-game season and getting ready for the grind. These guys have had to ramp it up, shut it down, and then hurry into a summer camp, which lasted 3 weeks. They all got anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5 games to get back into it, and then expected to be at 100%. The human body isn't made to do that. Muscles aren't made to withstand that. And the injury that crystallized that for me was the Soroka injury. The Mike Soroka popped his Achilles on a normal baseball play. And he's not the first. He won't be the last. He's certainly the most notable, I think, because he's going to be out for 12 months. But that was definitely a byproduct of this weird summer camp, this weird ramp down and ramp up again. Okay, so here's my question. It's known that spring training is usually, it tends to be pitchers who take longer to get ready. But, and we're talking about how the pitchers are going through injuries, but didn't they have, weren't they pitching anyway the whole time through? So let's say, like, with batters, you would want them facing live pitching, and you can't simulate that. Against an opponent, not your own team, you can't simulate that. But you can simulate pitching to a point where you wouldn't expect these bodies to be breaking down. But do you think it's the constant, starting and stopping again? Definitely. I think it's the starting and stopping. And yeah, a lot of this season is going to be dependent on who gets through with the least injuries. And a lot of it is how these individual players handled the shutdown. And, there were a lot of players that did ramp down because they had to, because they couldn't. There was no way that they could keep up that pitching regimen, that throwing regimen for the 3 months that they were out. It's just impossible to do it in your backyards, in hotel rooms, in the pier, like Marcus Stroman was trying to do. That's another one. That's another guy who didn't withstand. He's one of the most in shape pitchers in the game, and he couldn't survive the ramp down and the ramp up. You need to have routine, and all these ball players, try as they might, were taken out of a very regimented routine, and I think that hurt a lot of guys. You take a look at the New York Mets, up and down, uneven, but some bright spots. MND, Keith Hernandez, as they say in Yiddish, gave him the KINER'S. Basically, said, I give him the 9th inning too. He's pitching so well, and then all of a sudden it was running 2nd and 3rd, and a few more inches, it would have been a tie game. It's interesting the way they're using him now in the 7th inning or 8th inning. Do you think that's the wise move to try and get him back on track? Well, Diaz came out and said that he needed more work to stay sharp, and I think that's what this is. I think that's what this is more than any sort of demotion. He wanted extra work, so they found you can't have him close. There just aren't enough closing opportunities in a season. So, you get him some extra work so he stays sharp. So when the 9th inning comes and Seth Lugo isn't available, because I think, let's face it, right now Seth Lugo is the closer of the New York Mets, if you had to pick one. But Edwin Diaz could also be the closer of the Mets in games where Lugo isn't available. And I think the only way to do that is to keep Diaz sharp by putting him in these games in the 7th and 8th inning and holding on to leads or making sure that small deficits don't become big deficits. I really think on the whole he hasn't looked all that bad. It's a little uneven, but it seems like his slider is back, and I think that's the most important thing. If his slider is back the way it is early this season, I honestly think Diaz will be fine. Yeah, I agree, and I think the Mets are going to go on a little roll here. They always seem to right themselves against Washington on the years that they do well, so it'll be an interesting 4-game set coming up. We appreciate. And Washington's been struggling too, and I think they're due for. I think they're going to have a down year, but they're really struggling. They're getting hammered by the Orioles, so it's going to be I think the Mets have a real opportunity here, just like you said.
Agreed. All right, John, we'll speak to you next week. John Carpenter, heard here each and every week over 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Quick break. On the other side, we're going to speak to Hockey Hall of Famer Larry Brooks, so keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen and DeCrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, PoliceOfficersRightToSue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceOfficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, LMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at PoliceOfficersRightToSue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's PoliceOfficersRightToSue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman and Ryan Sherman, Mike Capisse with you this Sunday evening. Joining us now is a man whose Hockey Hall of Fame plaque sits beside such literary giants as Red Fisher, Al Laney, and Michael Farber. His passion for hockey began as a child growing up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, going on to Bronx High School of Science and then to CCNY. He found his way to the Post in 1976, starting in rewrite, then the Islanders beat. He also covered baseball during that time, covering the famous 1977 Yankees. In 1978, he began covering the Rangers, and the next season he segued into a role as hockey columnist while still covering baseball. He left the paper in 1982 to become vice president of communications for the Devils, which included the color commentary on radio. By 1993, he returned to the Post and covered the Devils, adding the now famous Sunday column known as Slapshots in 1995. He reclaimed the Rangers beat in 1996 and stayed on the Blue Shirts ever since. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome back the recipient of the Elmer Ferguson Award bestowed by the Hockey Hall of Fame in recognition of distinguishing members of the newspaper profession whose words have brought honor to journalism and to hockey, the one and only Larry Brooks of Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Larry.
Thanks, Mark. It's a very nice introduction. I appreciate it.
It's all you. Listen, it's all you.
I was listening. I wonder what he's talking about.
So before we talk Ranger hockey, let's talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame. Aside from the honor of being in the Hall of Fame, when you add those words in recognition of distinguished members of the newspaper profession whose words have brought honor to journalism and hockey, what are some of the thoughts that come to your mind, especially now when journalists are under attack in many different ways?
Well, it's very humbling. When I started, Red Fisher was writing, and Frank Orr was writing in Toronto, and Frank Rosa in Boston, and these were legends of the profession, and for me to be acknowledged the same way they were is really quite humbling and quite flattering. I do know that journalists are under attack from all quarters, and it is really important that we maintain our vigilance and we maintain our quest for information, because not only are journalists under attack, the internet has created a situation where leagues and teams obviously have their own message they want to get out, and increasingly they are attempting to minimize outside coverage and prioritize their own coverage. And so we face a different landscape than we did. Certainly, when I started, it was a different world in every aspect. In many ways, it's a much, much better world now, but in some ways, it's a more fragile world. In many ways, it's a more fragile world. So, our role is more important than ever. And I think that's something that needs to be reinforced all the time. And I actually did mention that during my speech at my induction. So, I do think it's we are essential workers. There is a reason that during the pandemic, during the restrictions in New York State, that journalists were essential worker status. And I think that kind of defines who we are.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that someone who reports on hockey is
No,
I'm not. But journalists are.
Absolutely. So we mentioned your passion for hockey began as you were growing up. Anyone who reads your work knows how well you see the game. Who was it that taught you the game of hockey, and was there one reporter that served as an inspiration for your writing?
No, to the second question. I went to games with my father, and just grew up and going to the old garden and the side balcony and the GO seats. I spent 50 cents a night, and I think the subway was, I think the round trip on the subway then was 30 cents, it was 15 cents, and I remember it was a big deal when it went to 20 cents. So I went to the old garden, sat in the side balcony, and then I got season tickets, and I was in 419 in the blue seats, and I am, and maybe it shows, self-taught. But I had the great fortune of covering the Islanders when I started. I mean, honestly, my first job was to cover the Islanders, and with Al Arbor and Bill Torrey and that team, who not only did they become I think the greatest team in hockey history, but certainly one of the greatest teams in hockey history, inarguably. But they were remarkably articulate and equally remarkably willing and eager to talk. So my education in the National Hockey League, my education came from, and my teachers were the New York Islanders of the mid to late 70s.
Wow.
Just a great team and a great group of players. And of course, it was much different. We traveled with the team, flew with the team, on the team bus, 8 meals with the players. You'd sit down in the coffee shop, and it was like you were just part of the traveling party. So the relationships between the players and the writers covering, or at least me, and I know a couple of others certainly, were much different. We were quasi-friendly. We were quasi-friends. We were friendly and quasi-friends. But I don't think that ever, it allows you to get a much fuller picture, and it allows you to create a bond of trust, because a lot of things happen, and when you go out with guys, there are things that don't make it into the paper, but you get to know these people, and now it's a much, much different landscape.
And it's a perfect segue to the next question, because obviously the way hockey is covered not only changed from that time, but a great deal now due to the pandemic. And having watched you work close up over the years, I see the hard work you put in to develop special relationships with the players who sit long after the post-game scrums have ended and talk to you. How challenging was the way the post-games and practices were handled via Zoom for your coverage of the team?
Oh, it's, I didn't think that I covered the series. I think I wrote about what I saw on television, and I think I wrote about what the guys said on Zoom, but coverage was limited. Coverage is limited everywhere, because when you have players on Zoom, the chances of real candor are minimized, and certainly the chances of a player telling an individual something is impossible. So it is a different world. I think what I tried to do is incorporate history into everything I wrote, and incorporate my knowledge of what background information. But if this, it's not really covering the beat. It's just covering what you see on television. So it's completely different. Completely different.
And it's also interesting because you said the way the media has changed.
And if I can interrupt, listen, I love what I do, but it is far less enjoyable, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even going to the practices, there's strict protocols. You're able, a limited number of reporters were able to attend each day when they skated in the summer camp. But you went in, you stood behind the glass, you watched them skate, and you left. There was no interaction. So that was a very bizarre. It was kind of normal, but it was completely abnormal at the same time.
And to your earlier point about the way the media has changed and the way that the teams like to control the message, now via Zoom, it's not the open locker room where you might be able to catch a guy who is more candid than another player, but yet now you're limited to who on the dailies they're giving you after practice. So it's again more to that point as well.
Right. And since I'm doing columns on these games, I would often, when I'm writing a column, I often pick out any individual who may not have been the star of the game, who may not have had a significant impact on the game, but there may be an issue with him that I want to write about. Maybe a contract issue, maybe an ice time issue. That's impossible because if they put two players on the Zoom conference call, it's impossible to write about the third player. So it's just it's an unwieldy situation, and for far greater reasons than hockey coverage. I certainly hope this does not last beyond this playoffs.
Mayor, this is Ryan Sherman. So I have a question about, we've talked about how the media has changed and how the teams have changed the coverage, but also for you personally, when you started with that Islanders team and you were able to build such a trust, do you have any differences to today's game where the players are a little bit younger? Maybe you don't, what are the ways you try to connect with them and build that trust?
I was younger.
No, of course.
And that was, I'm sure that we were all, that was a really young Islander team, and I was 25, and so yes, it was, and they weren't making, some of those guys weren't making all that much money, all that much more money than I was at that point, and so the relationship was completely different, and I get that. I get that I'm an older person now, and there are teenagers in the locker room, but I think it's less that than the structure that has been put in place. Plus, I have to say, too, that now, after games, players are working out. They are. They just go straight to the workout room, and they're working out. Where, when I started with the Islanders, players would be hanging out in the locker room, drinking beer after the game. So it was completely different.
But, here's the flip side of that. So, agreed, yes, you were younger, the Islanders were younger, it was a different era as far as, what the sport was. But let's face it, in that room, there's no doubt you are the most respected journalist there is. I mean, you're in the freaking Hall of Fame, Larry. So, does that add a little bit to the relationship where the guys will respect you more than, me or any other guy in that room?
I can't. That's really not a question I can answer. You have to ask the players, and they would probably say, "He's in the Hall of Fame."
All right. Let's turn our attention to the 2019-2020 New York Rangers. Let's start with the head coach, David Quinn. How would you assess the job he did in year 2, and how important do you think this playing experience was for him?
I think he did a very good job this year. The signing of Panarin, the addition of Fox, the acquisition of Trouba, changed the expectations for this year's team, and maybe a little bit unfairly, maybe not. So I think there was a lot more expected of this team with Panarin, with Trouba. And as the season evolved, with Adam Fox becoming just such a big-time player right out of the gate with Adam Fox. But I think that at the core, this is very much a rebuilding team, and I think that lot of players progressed this year, and I think you have to give certainly some credit, a lot of credit to the coaching staff for that. I think Pavel Bogdanovich, he certainly took a step this year. You have to give Adam Fox, Ryan Lindgren, Tony DeAngelo, and Quinn's decision very early in the year to split Zibanejad and Panarin was a critical one, and because it gave the Rangers, instead of a potential super first line with Panarin and Zibanejad, it gave them two legitimate first lines, which of course forced the opposition to choose their match. So I think David Quinn did a really good job this year. I think that this playoff experience will be a help to him. I'm not sure what happened there. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know why they were so bad. I know that really their best players were not good. So when you start with that, that's a pretty good place to start to explain it. But still, they just were not representative of the team they were during the season at all. And I think that, again, so far removed, I am more perplexed than anything else. But I am sure that David Quinn picked up and is now digesting a lot of the information that he was able to gather over those 3 games in 6 days, including the summer camp. Because it's interesting. I wrote a number of times that it was impossible for me to place that camp into context with what I saw, because it was unprecedented. But as it turns out, the players who actually were most impressive during that camp, for whatever it was worth, were also the players who were most impressive during their series against Carolina, and the players who didn't show up, who just didn't show anything at that camp, also didn't show anything in the series. So, looking backward now, you can put the camp into some sort of context, and I think now David Quinn has that camp and these 3 games off of which to draw.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how he assesses all of that. One of the key questions going into the season was the goaltending. Rangers had 3 NHL quality netminders at the start of the season. Everyone speculated with lots of different scenarios that could have played out. Your article this past week, Henrik Lundqvist's Long Rangers Goodbye is Coming to an End, was spot on. Had this season been a made-for-TV movie, all the hard work Henrik put in, and Igor's injury would have had Hank putting the Rangers on his back, much like Carey Price did in the playoffs. As you mentioned, Hank played well enough to win in Game 2, not well enough in Game 2. So we actually sit here exactly 100 days from the start of training camp. Do you see Henrik back as a Ranger next year, and which are the ways he goes out?
I can't conceive of a situation where he's back, and this isn't just off of now. I mean, I think I started writing that in February. But I just could not envision a scenario under which he is back next year. He clearly is not going to be their number 1 goaltender. There is really no evidence that he can or wants to be a backup. Being a backup is a very, very tough job. It's not just playing the games. Backup goaltenders are on the ice with the extras every day. When there's an optional practice, well, the Rangers actually don't have that many optionals, but they have some game day optionals. The backup goaltender goes on. It's the first guy on the ice with the extras, stays on the ice late to work with the guys. It's a very demanding position, and I don't know that at the age of 38, after being the face of the franchise for 15 years, that's a workable situation. Even if Lundqvist says, you know what, I'm okay with that. I'll give that a try. I'm just not sure that's a workable situation. It was so uncomfortable in the practice in say February and March before the pause, when Hank played 19 games, and yet there he was in the locker room every day, and the man who had spoken for the team essentially since 2005 was just an extra. He was just a spare And I just don't. I can't conceive of a situation where he's back. I don't know what he's going to do. He may want to continue to play if in the NHL. We know he's extremely competitive. He believes that he can win a number one job somewhere and take a team to the cup. And if that's what he believes, then he has every right to try and do that. But then the Rangers, I think, are going to have to buy him out. Clearly, for the Rangers, it would not be great to add another $5.5 million of dead cap space on top of the 7.4 or whatever they have. I mean, they really would be operating with a $68 million cap if they buy out Lundqvist. But I just don't see Lundqvist back here. The other alternative is that he decides, and with the COVID issue still hanging over all of us, that he decides that next year he would just as soon stay in Sweden. Because even if he comes back next year and plays somewhere, he may not bring his family with him. Is that really what he's going to want to do? Is he going to want to go to a new city and stay by himself? There are a lot of things. And Henrik Lundqvist has earned the right to make that decision. But the Rangers also have earned the right to make their roster decisions. This is not about loyalty. This is not about rewarding somebody for 15 years of great service. You can't run a franchise on a credit card. You can't. And I think he realizes that. I do. So I just don't see a scenario under which he comes back next year.
And I wonder also, I mean, he's a guy who's a very, very proud individual. And I wonder if legacy, enters his mind and going someplace, if he truly believes he can be a number one and lead a team to a Stanley Cup, then that's what he's going to do. On the other hand, if he thinks that, it's going to be a hard task to do that, and I don't know what team that's on the cusp of a cup will have the cap room for him, so it's going to be interesting. I think you're right.
I think he would play. I assume on an over 35 1-year deal. That's kind of loaded with bonuses. But in addition to that, I don't see a Stanley Cup contender that's in great need of a number one goaltender either.
Right.
And that's the issue. There might be some teams out there where he would be able to grab the number one job, but are they in cities where he wants to live? And why would he want to play for a bad team? When he wouldn't leave New York because he wanted to win the Stanley Cup in New York. So, I mean, there is a lot, and what he decides to do is, I don't know what he is going to decide to do. I don't think anybody knows at this point what he's going to decide to do. I'm not sure if he knows, but I just know that the Rangers have to make their decision, taking emotion out of it.
It's very difficult with a franchise player like that as well. Maybe for me, because I just love the guy, and I know that he really meant so much to the franchise. I don't know, maybe it's because of covering Tom Rennie, John Tortorella, and AV. Interesting, the last two of them both up for the Jack Adams Award. The voices in my head always come back to it's a process, whether it be a player or a team. Coach Quinn thought that the second half push for the playoffs and playing in those high leverage games was important for the young players. 11 of those players made their playoff debut in far from normal circumstances. When you throw that into the mix, how valuable were, even you take the results out, how important were those 3 games for those 11 players and their development?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because they just weren't competitive in such large sections of the games. They just weren't. And so I'm not sure. I think probably each player comes away from it with a different experience. I think that for Brett Howden, it was terrific. I thought Brett Howden took a major step forward. Now, look, I don't think Brett Howden's going to be a top 6 player. No. I don't think he has the skills to be a top 6 player, but he sure can be a third-line center, a very effective third-line center. And I thought that his tournament, followed by a pretty good summer camp, was a major step for him. I think so. He steps off, I think. I think Kako will benefit from the experience in which he played well. I think Jacob Trouba and he is not one of the 11. I'm aware of that, but I think Trouba had a very erratic season. I thought he had, and he talked about it. He had difficulty adjusting to a new team after having played only in Winnipeg for his entire career. It's an adjustment in itself, coming from Winnipeg to New York. It's an adjustment playing suddenly under a 7-year contract that's worth $8 million. There's a lot there, and I thought Trouba had a disappointing season, but I think he came to summer camp in better shape than he was during the year, and I thought he had a good camp, and I thought he played very well in the round against Carolina. So I think that's an important. I think that's an important development for the Rangers. I thought Ryan Lindgren battled hard. Adam Fox was just so unusual not to see him stand out. I think that they all now recognize that what they came with wasn't good enough. And so each individual is going to have to look at himself and take something out of that. But I think there was some benefit to it, and I think there's a benefit for David Quinn also. Because I think now David Quinn maybe has an understanding that the playoffs are much different than the regular season. I mean, it's funny, in 06-07, I remember the Rangers were battling to make the playoffs the last, week or two of the season, and Lenny was the coach at that point, and there was a lot of talk about, well, these are playoff games for us. These are playoff games for us. And then they played Atlanta in the first round. And I remember talking to Sean Avery after, I think, the first game. And Avery said, he said, these games we've been playing at the end of the season, they were tough. He said, they're nothing like this game. It's completely different. And it is. And I think the Rangers come away from this at least more educated on what playoff hockey is like.
I totally agree. When I did the book on the 78-79 team, and speaking to the younger players that got eliminated from Buffalo the year before, like Murdoch and all these guys said that experience really helped them. Even JD said that experience really helped them to know what to expect the following year. I don't know if it, obviously that defeat was not what spurred them on. JD was really the reason, but a lot of those young players got experience.
Hedberg and Wilson,
a little bit, and Shiro as well. Instead of John Calvert, a little bit.
So just to go back to the goalie situation, how much do you think the third character in the goalie triangle, Georgiev, has really forced, this situation where you believe Lundqvist won't be back? What do you think of Georgiev? Do you see him as a future starter that the Rangers will have to deal away because he deserves a starting job? Do you see him as someone who they're going to hold on to and have as that backup? What do you think?
Well, he'll be here next year, unless they're overwhelmed by an offer between now and, say, at the draft. The calendar is so skewed that, between now and November, I guess, or really between now and October. I think the draft is set for early October, and free agency begins after that. So July will become, the normal July, I guess, will become October this year.
Right.
I think they envision Georgiev as their backup goaltender next year. And if there's a condensed schedule next year, the backup's going to play a fair amount. And I think they have a lot of faith in Alex. Alex has not yet shown that he can carry a team. He's had stretches where he has played 3 really good games, but he has never backed it up with the fourth. I mean, if you go back and look, he has 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, but the fourth one isn't quite there. And he's still a very young goalie. He's still an inexperienced goaltender, but he's a very hard worker, very popular among his teammates. And again, unless the Rangers are overwhelmed by an offer for him, I think he'll be here next year, and we'll see. I don't think you go into the season. Well, let me just say this: they're not going to trade him because at some point he deserves to be traded. That's just not the way to run a professional organization. You can't win that way. It's your needs. You have to be fair to the players, but you also don't give guys away just because they want to be a number 1 somewhere else. So I think they will have Shesterkin and Georgiev next year, and we'll see how it plays out after that.
You mentioned October being the new July. The beauty of the elimination is the Rangers now have a 12.5% chance of getting the first overall pick in the draft. Many people are saying that Alexis Lafreniere is a franchise transformational player. You pointed out in your column last week with the looming top 6 opening in the middle of the next couple of years, the Rangers might at least consider Sudbury's Quinton Byfield. And I actually think Byfield might be the better fit for the team as well. What are the differences between the two of those players at this stage in their development?
I'm not a good person to answer about that.
Okay.
Seriously, I don't claim to have advanced knowledge of the prospects. I see some of their clips. I read a lot about them, but I have no firsthand knowledge of one versus the other as to this stage of their development.
Reading a lot of the prospects report, Liefeld, is a lot more physical, and I think in your articles you say that they definitely need a lot more grit. That's one thing that was exposed.
I think it's a very interesting question, because I think that unquestionably Lafreniere, from everything I've read and from what I've seen, Lafreniere unquestionably has separated himself as a prospect. He is one alone. There is no controversy about who is one. It's not even, it's not like last year. Well, Kako Hughes, or Sagan Hall. I mean, all those years where you have discussions about who might be number one. There's no discussion. He has separated himself. If he is that far ahead, then I think you take the player. You take the player if he's that far ahead. But it's an interesting exercise in player versus need. In philosophy, do you go for the best player, or do you go to fill a position of need? And I think most teams go for the player. If the Rangers get the first pick, there'll be a lot of talk about, can they bundle? Can they move down? Could they move down and get back? What can they do if they get the first pick? But, generally the simplest path is the best path.
Right.
And I would think if they go number one, Lafreniere is probably the guy they would take. Although, it's interesting again, because they have Panarin and Kreider on the left. He's a left wing. Are they going to draft him if he's going to be their third line left wing? I don't know about that.
Right.
So there's a lot. There's a lot. There are a lot of considerations.
It's unbelievable that this is what we get to talk about right now in August, but it's some great stuff. A few more before we let you go. Other young talent in the pipeline for the Rangers on the offensive side, obviously Vitaly Kravtsov, Morgan Barron. On the blue line, aside from K'Andre Miller, they have Nils Lundqvist as well as Matthew Robertson. Do you see any of that group being an impact on the team in the near future?
But before I answer that, the other real positive from this second season that the Rangers had, short as it was K'Andre Miller's performance in their summer camp. Yeah. He came in again. It was a summer camp, and some of the guys may not have been invested. Some of them were. So you don't want to again take this out of context either. However, K'Andre Miller looked terrific in summer camp. He was playing both sides. He was playing right side a lot because he was an extra, and so they used him just to fill in. But in the scrimmages and in the practices, he looked like a big time prospect. I don't think anyone in the Ranger organization expects him to play for the team next year. I really don't. And if there's any doubt, then please don't bring him up. Yeah. Let him play in Hartford and get some experience in the American League. So I doubt that any of these players will make an impact next year. I think Barron certainly has a chance to make the team. He plays both wing and center. The Rangers, I think, see him as a winner. So I think he has a real shot to compete for a job. I think he has a real shot to be on the team. And I think if the league had allowed the Rangers to sign him, I think there's a pretty good chance he would have played in this round, as a matter of fact. So I think Barron is the guy who might play on the team. I think it's a stretch to think that anybody else will. And I think it's important, by the way, that they are very patient with the people they draft.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't, let's say they don't get the number one. There's a 12.5% chance they do, so what's that, 87.5 that they don't. And if they don't, they're gonna wind up drafting 10 or 11. And it's very important that they, that they don't try and rush whomever they draft at 10 or 11. I think there is no need to rush people. You have to allow this to unfold at its natural pace.
I got two more for you. One of the players that I was looking at today, and by no means do I expect them ever to be the type of player that Mika Zibanejad is, but you take a look at Pavel Buchnevich's first couple of seasons in the NHL, and you look at Zibanejad's numbers, and they're really almost identical. Buchnevich, I don't, he kind of flies under the radar as I don't think the expectations from Ranger fans are as high as they are for Kakko and other younger players, but he's still a very young player. How high do you think the actual ceiling for a player like Buchnevich is?
He's been pretty erratic. I thought he competed hard in this round, but he wasn't terribly effective. Really, none of their skill players were effective. So, but I did think he competed pretty hard, and I thought he elevated his game toward the end of the regular season when Kreider was out, and Di Giuseppe moved up to the left side, so it really became, instead of Chris and Zibanejad as kind of the partnership, it became Zibanejad and Buchnevich. And I thought he handled it very well. I thought he competed harder. I thought he was better away from the puck. However, he's going to be coming up on a big contract in a couple of years, and I'm not sure that. I'm just not sure how he fits in. I don't know. I think if he has I think they could make a decision this offseason, or they could let it ride next year and see how he performs. But again, it's a flat cap for a couple of years. It's not going to go up much in the third year, and I don't think it's going to go up that much in the fourth year either, because the players are so overwhelmingly consumed with the escrow issue that an increase in the cap automatically brings an increase in escrow. And while I understand that escrow is capped at a certain amount, it's just going to keep rolling over and rolling over and rolling over. So I don't know that the Rangers would have the space to spend that kind of money on Buchnevich if Kakko develops into a legit top 6 first-line player. And I think and honestly, if Kakko does not become a first-line player, then I think everyone will be shocked, just shocked if he doesn't become a first-liner. So how much are they going to pay Buchnevich to be a second or third-line player? I don't know.
All right, last question. Biggest disappointment in the play-in round: Edmonton, Pittsburgh, or Nashville?
Edmonton, Pittsburgh, or Nashville? Oh, Pittsburgh, certainly. Pittsburgh, certainly.
Yeah.
They have very little excuse. I mean, Carey Price is very good, but Montreal finished 24th.
Yeah.
And I understand. You know what? The playoffs came. This round came. 4.5 months after the season ended. So so there is a disconnect in analyzing this. This is a one-off. However, the Penguins' performance was pitiful.
Yeah, shocking. For sure.
And maybe Crosby was hurt. I don't know, but that's part of it. I mean, he plays so hard, and he's played for a long time now. He's played for as long as Lundqvist.
Yeah, and then you add in all those playoff games as well.
Right, exactly, right. So this is going to be a part of it with Crosby. I mean, there are going to be times when he's banged up, and but they got Gensel back from an injury. Everything I read is that they had this great summer camp. I was actually kind of joking, like, because everybody, and I don't think I did. I honestly don't think I did, but you would read read reports from all these summer camps around the league, and like every team looked great. Oh, great! They've never been faster. And I was thinking to myself, what? I don't know. What are these guys watching? I don't know. I'm watching the Rangers play, and it's kind of like, whatever. So, but I don't think Pittsburgh has much of an excuse for going out to a team really that's not a terribly good team. Now look, Montreal may catch fire.
Yeah.
And but Pittsburgh, but I have to say too that, and again, they were underdogs, and they were underdogs, and in the playoffs, in the play-in for the first time, however you want to describe it. But the Rangers' performance was pretty disappointing. They really were. Not that they lost.
The way they
just weren't competitive.
I totally agree. And you know what? The other thing is, all these people that sit with the analytics, you take a look at the defensive metrics of the Chicago Blackhawks, and you would have thought they would have been swept by Edmonton because all their numbers were like at the bottom, and they just came up big too. So it was interesting for sure.
You know what? I there was something about that series. Chicago still has enough players left from their Cup run to be a very dangerous opponent, especially against a team that seems to me to be incredibly fragile. I mean, there's so much negative energy swirling around the Oilers because they have had so much difficulty establishing any kind of a foothold, even though they have gotten one number one pick after another. And so going in, I just thought that was around. I actually did pick the Blackhawks to win that round, but I did not pick the Canadiens to win. But I did like Chicago because I just thought that against a questionable team like Edmonton, with a goalie who was kind of so-so, was the perfect opponent for Chicago. And I also thought, the Blackhawks, these guys, out of nowhere, they get a chance to compete again, for the Stanley Cup, and that would elevate their game. So I thought Chicago's win was not as surprising as the others.
Nice. All right, Larry, thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks for decades worth of great sports coverage. Hopefully come November, I'll see you in person rather than Zoom at training camp. I look forward to it for sure.
Excellent, Mark. Thanks a lot for having me on. It's really enjoyable.
Our pleasure for sure. See you soon, Larry. Be good. Hockey Hall of Famer Larry Brooks will be back with the NBA report right after this.
Since 1952, Solomon's Jewelers has been the name to trust on Long Island for jewelry. Solomon's Jewelers is a 60-year-old family-owned business run by jewelry professionals and Gemological Institute of America graduates. 3 generations of experience let them offer you certified appraisals. They have a highly skilled design, repair, and watchmaker staff on premises for all your restyling needs. Solomon Jewelers offers a wide variety of magnificent designer couture jewelry, name brand watches, and certified diamonds. Solomon Jewelers pride themselves on having the best customer service and support in the jewelry industry. They're there with 60 years of experience behind them. Educate and guide you through every step of your jewelry purchase. Solomon Jewelers has 2 convenient locations to serve Long Island's jewelry needs. 74 Minettoville Plaza, Plainview, New York, or 1030 Willis Avenue, Albertson, New York. Visit them on the web at www.solomonjewelers.com. Solomon Jewelers, serving Long Island since 1952.
Since 1964, Prince Associates' commitment has been to provide customers with the best insurance value and service available while maintaining the highest ethical standards and credibility with their clients, carriers, and the public. Prince Associates Incorporated is an independent insurance agency with a broad range of commercial, personal, life, and health products. Prince Associates has aligned themselves with some of the finest carriers to deliver these products to you. So whether you're a business or an individual, Prince Associates can help. Please visit them on the web at princeinns.com for an online quote, or call them at 516-822-6550. Tell them Mark and AJ sent you. Prince Associates, meeting your every insurance need since 1964.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. This is Ryan Sherman. It's time for the Disaster Cleanup Services NBA Report with Chaim Talbin. For more information, visit their website at www.4disasters.com. Call today and mention Sports Talk New York for a free in-home inspection at 1-800-297-WATER. That's 1-800-297-9283. All right, Chaim, we've got a play-in series in the West. Can you sum it up for us in about 2 minutes?
I'm sorry? I didn't catch that, Ryan.
No worries. We've got a playoff series in the West. Play-in. We've got about 2 minutes. Can you sum that up for us?
The play-in series in the West.
Chaim?
Hey, Ryan, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You got...
Yeah, can you hear me, Chaim? I think we're having phone difficulties.
All right, so we're having phone difficulties. All right, Mike, we've got a play-in series in the West. Who are the teams? It's the Grizzlies and the Portland Trailblazers.
I like the Grizzlies.
Okay. All right, but not Dame Lillard with all that experience?
No, I think John Moran is just going to go off in this series.
I don't know.
I think the young...
All right, I prefer Lillard in that series. What about you?
So who do you think is going to be the player that emerges from these playoffs that everyone's going to say,
it's already happened. It's T.J. Warren in Indiana.
But nowhere. But that always happens, that there's a player all of a sudden that puts a team on his back that you don't expect, and they have this tremendous run in them. Do you think any team, listen, what about the Greek Freak? Is he capable of carrying his team deep into, because there's no 1A on that team. He's it. He's 1, he's 1A, he's 1B, he's 1-5.
Their B is Chris Middleton. Their second best player is Chris Middleton. They have their...
tremendous drop-off when you look at, you think of LeBron's cast of characters.
Especially with the money that they pay him like an A, Chris Middleton. Right. So it hurts the way that they can build the team around Giannis. I don't know, we haven't seen Giannis. They've been number 1 seed, so we haven't seen Giannis go for it yet. I guess that's what we're waiting to see.
He's the guy I want to watch, because there's just so much pressure on him to put a team like LeBron back when that Cleveland team was terrible. He put him on their back. Yeah. I'm going to see. I'd like to see if the Greek Freak can do that. That's the guy I'm going to be watching. All right, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to speak to Jerry Hairston Jr. So keep it tuned right here.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the preceding program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hello, this is Bob Garrett, CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health. Through its devastating spread, COVID-19 has touched all of us, leaving an impact on every facet of our lives. I'm so proud of the way Hackensack Meridian Health has mobilized to fight this outbreak. Our team members on the front lines fight tenaciously every day for the health of our patients and community. For us, this fight is personal. We are not only treating your families, but our own families as well. And while many things about COVID-19 remain uncertain, I am certain that together we will win this battle. If you can, please help our patients, our healthcare heroes, and our researchers by making a donation to our COVID-19 response fund. You can learn more at hackensackmeridianhealth.org/COVID-19. Sponsored by the Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation and aired by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
Is a friend or loved one's gambling problem affecting your life emotionally, spiritually, or financially? Do you yourself take a toll on the people around you due to a gambling issue? Have the conversation. Visit 800gambler.org for access to a new video on the family, various programs, services, and resources for disordered gamblers, their friends, and or loved ones. At 800-GAMBLER, we offer support, treatment, and hope. We're just a phone call or click away. This message sponsored by the Council on Compulsive Gambling in New Jersey, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Cap off the weekend of watching sports by talking about it with Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter on Sports Talk New York. All the intelligent conversation, insightful interviews, and reporters covering every story is right here on 540 AM from 7 to 8:30 Sunday nights. Check out sportstalknylive.com for previews of upcoming guests and visit their Facebook page for a chance to win prizes. Sports Talk New York, Sunday nights from 7 to 8:30 on 540 AM.
Morris County needs everyone, and especially our Spanish-speaking community, to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for housing and child care programs. Less for schools and student lunches. less for senior citizens, less for community health care. Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census, online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, Social Security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and aired in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
In the wake of the coronavirus, many schools and colleges are utilizing distance learning. While distance learning may be the best way to keep students and school staff safe, students and educators alike will surely miss the personal interactions and social opportunities that take place in regular school settings. Here are some ways to make the most of distance learning. First of all, stay on a schedule. It's easy to put things off when you work from home. Get up, get dressed, and keep regular lunch breaks. Make time for online social interactions. Students can create study groups that can meet online to review lessons and ask questions. Get up and move. Take a break every hour to take a walk around the house. Drink some water and wash your hands. Stay alert and practice healthy habits. Eat dinner as a family. Talk about what you learned each day. Keep a regular sleep schedule. It's easy to get off track and stay up late watching television or playing video games when you don't have to leave the house. Remember, it's still a school day. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert, and when I'm not calling a game for the Rangers or the Knicks, I'm listening to Sports Talk New York with Mark Rosenben and A.J. Carter.
The third baseman, number 11, Mark Rosenben.
Never gets old. I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys are getting sick of hearing that, but it never gets old for me. Welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Rosenben, Ryan Sherman, Michael Caprice with you this Sunday evening. Joining us now is a man who played 16 seasons in the major leagues. He was a member of the Baltimore Orioles, Chicago Cubs, Texas Rangers, Cincinnati Reds, New York Yankees, San Diego Padres, Washington Nationals, Milwaukee Brewers, and Los Angeles Dodgers. He played every position except pitcher and catcher during his baseball career. He is a grandson of former Major Leaguer Sam Hairston, the son of former Major Leaguer Jerry Hairston Sr., and the brother of Scott Hairston. He helped the Yankees win the 2009 World Series, beating the Philadelphia Phillies, giving him his only World Series title. After his playing days, he became a fixture as part of the Dodgers pre- and post-game broadcasting crew on Sportsnet LA. It is a pleasure to welcome Jerry Hairston Jr. to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Jerry.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate that introduction, man. I was getting tired when you started rattling off all those teams.
It's our pleasure, actually, to have you. And we love taking deep dives into players' careers that we've had on our show. We usually start with high school, but aside from being the son and grandson of a team as a 12-year-old in Napa, why did those strikeouts motivate you more than some of the home runs or great fielding plays you made in Little League?
Well, I think, it's amazing. When I was younger, I always thought, or maybe it applies to me now, I always thought I was a better player than I actually was. And Matt Scar was a guy that was my age, and he was just better than me, flat out. And I ran into somebody who was a better player than I was, and what it made me realize, even at that age, hey, I need to get better. I need to improve my game, even at 12 years old. So it was cool to have that experience. And I had that experience, too, in pro ball. When I was in pro ball, I ran into a guy in A-ball by the name of Carlos Beltran. He was my age, and he was better than I was. He could run like a deer, incredible center fielder, hit both sides of the plate, and I said, man, this guy is better than me. And that made me strive to be better. So you always need that extra guy to kind of push you a little bit.
So my normal co-host, A.J. Carter, who's not here right now, and I wrote a book about fathers and sons in baseball 2 years ago. We had the opportunity to talk to about 30 father-son combinations that played in the majors, as well as the Bells, Boones, and Schofields. David Bell and Brett Boone said it was their grandfather who instilled the love of baseball in them as their dads were still playing as they were growing up. Was that the same for you and your brother, Scott?
I would say a little bit of both. You know, I think the biggest thing for me is listening to my grandfather and my father tell stories at the dinner table. You know, I think that was a unique thing as a 7, 8, 10-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid, listening to their experiences. My grandfather talking about W.D. Radcliffe, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, all those great Negro League players. Talk about Minnie Minoso and his experiences in the big league. So that kind of motivated me, saying, man, that just sounds so cool. I want to be able to have those type of stories. In order to do that, I got to play baseball, and I got to play at the highest level. So, I think both of those men, my father and my grandfather, had a tremendous influence on me, listening to those stories.
So in high school, you were two-time All-State selection at Naperville North High School in baseball, All-Area selection in basketball. I have to imagine that it's challenging for a coach to have a former professional baseball player's son on their team. What were some of the things you learned from baseball coach Carl Hunkler and basketball coach, who was also an assistant on the baseball team, in Mark Lindo?
Two really good coaches. I still keep in touch with both of them today. Coach Hunkler texted me about 4 or 5 days ago when he was getting ready to go on the golf course. They're both retired, still have a great relationship with both of them. Coach Hunkler was a really good athlete in the state of Illinois, was a great two-sport star in basketball and baseball, and he carried that football mentality with him as a baseball coach. He coached football as well, but I didn't play football, but he had that mentality, hey, don't be denied. Figure out a way to get it done. No excuses. So he's definitely like that old school, blue collar type of attitude. No excuses. And I love that type of approach. Coach Lindo was the assistant baseball coach, but he was my high school basketball coach. He's the guy. Same type of guy. Don't be denied. I don't want to hear it. He'd kick you in the butt, figuratively, when you needed it. But he also encouraged you, too, when you also needed it. So I love both guys. Coach Lindo was something else as a basketball coach. I remember he launching a three, and I hear, no, in the back of my ear. And then when I go in, he goes, good shot. So I really enjoyed it. Both those guys. We have great relationships with both. Actually, Coach Lindo took me and Nick Solak, who's now the Texas Rangers. We both went to high school, the same high school, obviously years apart. Nick Solak, we hit a home run today for the Texas Rangers. He took us to dinner right before spring training started this year, so it was great to see him and Nick.
Nice. You drafted in the 42nd round of the 1995 Major League Draft by the Baltimore Orioles. You choose to go instead to college. You played your college ball at Southern Illinois University. What were some of the other college offers you had, and what made Southern Illinois so attractive to you?
Well, I could have gone to Nebraska. I remember, I want to say it was Saunders was the head coach there. Could have gone to Nebraska. I just remember it being so cold, and I kind of was like, man, I don't know if I really want to go that far away to somewhere cold. I had opportunities to go down south. I know my grandfather had some connections at Alabama, but Southern Illinois was there from day one. Coach Dan Callahan and Hindu, both those guys reached out to me very, very early, and they were consistent and persistent. Wanted me to go there. Then I had a couple buddies who were all-state with me. We played on a couple teams, Joe Schley and Jason Frazier, who also pitched in the big leagues. Frazier was going to Southern Illinois. So those two guys convinced me to head down with them and start something pretty new. And I'm glad I did, because I had a great experience at Southern Illinois. Got a chance to play right away, which is very important. A lot of kids, sometimes want to go to that huge school and with that big name. The most important thing is reps. Get as much reps as you can, and get your game ready. Get your game right. So that's one of the reasons why I went to Southern Illinois. I knew I'd play right away.
Another way of getting your game right is you play 2 years in one of my favorite leagues ever, and it's in the Cape Cod League. You get to play for Don Reed, and a lot of people don't really know his name, but he's a guy who managed for 13 years on the Cape, making the playoffs all 13 years as a manager. His 334 wins puts him second behind John Schiffner as the Cape's all-time winningest manager. What made Don such a good manager at that level? That's a very interesting, dynamic there, because you have, most of the players there, all of the players there, are the best college kids in the nation that get together in the summer to play, and you don't have a lot of time to get the cohesiveness, but yet 13 years, this guy makes the playoffs. He's got to be some special coach.
Well, there's a reason why he made the playoffs every year, because he knows what he's doing. He's a baseball guy. And that's one thing that we knew right away. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he understood his players. He had a son. When I was there, his son was currently in the major leagues. So you knew that, he must know what he's talking about because he has a son in the big leagues, So he's a teacher, and he understood that, hey, it's about developing the players. If I develop the players the right way and help them execute certain situations, we increase our chances to win ball games. So he's an outstanding coach, and he was an outstanding coach for many, many years.
So you're drafted in the 11th round now of the 1997 Major League Draft, once again by the Orioles. You make your way up the Orioles farm system. You receive a September promotion to the Major Leagues in 1998. This is what blows my mind. You join an Oriole team that has two of your dad's former teammates on it, as Harold Baines and Ozzie Guillen both played on the White Sox with your dad. Do you remember their reaction to seeing you walk into that clubhouse?
I just missed Ozzie Guillen. That's amazing. You've done your homework. I barely just missed Ozzie Guillen. But Harold Baines was there because Ozzie Guillen was there with the Orioles. Then I think he got released or got traded, and then I quickly came back. Actually, I quickly got called up to the Orioles. So I just missed Ozzie Guillen. He was on the Orioles roster that year. But I played with Harold Baines, and I remember Harold Baines' reaction was like, I got the bat boy, because I would sometimes bat boy for the White Sox when I was a kid. He's hitting behind me. Now, we played together. I was September Cup in 98, but I got a chance to play just about every day when I was up in 1999. A lot of those lineups, I would hit 7th, and Harold Baines would hit 6th. So guys would get a kick out of that, and they'd make fun of Harold Baines. You got the bat boy hitting behind you. It's some protection. And I remember I had a 4-hit game one day. I hit 2 doubles, and both times Harold Baines was on first, and I'm at second base, and he's standing giving me an ovation at third base. I'm like, don't be standing there clapping. You should have scored that ball. So it was definitely a great experience because Harold Baines was kind of one of my boyhood heroes. He was one of the best players to ever play, especially one of the best DHs to ever play the game. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. He had so many clutch hits for our teams, so many clutch hits throughout his career. So it was good to see him be a Hall of Famer, and he was a great teammate.
And this is also what I love about baseball, those connections. So after 7 productive seasons with the Orioles, your best year with them, in fact, you're traded. And interestingly enough, you're traded for another one of your dad's former teammates in Sammy Sosa. Were you surprised by that trade, given that you were just coming off your best year as an Oriole? And it's the organization that drafted you twice, and you're an Oriole, man. That's who you are. Are you kind of taken aback by that first trade?
Well, this is a funny story as well. So I had heard some trade rumors because I came up as a shortstop, second baseman, but I just moved to center field, which actually I love playing center field. Brian Roberts was up and coming, really good player, and he was playing second base, and I actually loved him playing second and me playing short. He would lead off, I would hit second, and that really made our team pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And I love that kind of dynamic. We had 1 and 2. Well, I get a call from our GM say, hey, I know you're in the trade talk. We're not going to trade you. We have you playing center field on opening day. I was like, perfect. I'll be an Oriole. Love that. About 4 or 5 days later, I get traded to Chicago. I was like, wait a minute, I thought I wasn't going to get traded. I get traded for Sammy Sosa. Obviously, things happen, in the big leagues overnight. Things change. I understood that. So getting traded for Sammy Sosa, I run into Sammy a couple times since retirement. I've told him, and I always tell him this, I had a better season than he did in 05. The year after we were trading, I had a better year than he did. You know what I'm saying? So the trade worked out for both teams.
So the first 7 seasons, you're on one team. Over the next 9 seasons, you play for 8 teams. And of those 8 teams, there's some pretty high-profile managers as well. Guys like Dusty Baker, Buck Showalter, Don Mattingly, Davey Johnson, Joe Girardi. If you could take the best parts of all the managers you played for and make one super manager out of them, what would the best parts from each be?
That is a really good question, and that's why I've talked to a couple teams in the past about managing. I think that is probably the biggest advantage I would have if I were to pursue that as a career being a manager, is taking all those experiences from Buck Showalter. Buck Showalter's his ability, believe it or not, and I might get killed for this, managing the bullpen. He's done an outstanding job of managing bullpen. He really made one mistake, left Zach Britton in Toronto. If you look back at his entire career as a manager, Buck Showalter's done an incredible job managing his bullpen. Okay, and I noticed that, how prepared he was with the pitching coach. Dusty Baker, overall, his being prepared from week in, week out. What I mean by that is he already has his lineups ready to go weeks in advance, just to make sure everybody has a chance to maybe get a rest, make sure his bench players have enough at bat so they can stay ready and stay fresh. He maxed out lineups a week to 10 days, and he lets players know, hey, coming up, you're going to play on Thursday, and you're going to play on Saturday. Okay? For me, that was perfect because he would tell me, hey, I need you to play second base on Thursday. On Saturday, you're going to be playing center field, and Sunday, you might be playing some shortstop. Okay? He would let me know 3 or 4 days in advance, which is huge. His communication, him being prepared, he's probably the most prepared manager I ever played for. Bud Black, again, managing the bullpen, his personableness. He does an outstanding job communicating with his players, talking trash to the dugout, and he's funny. Don Mattingly, his feistiness, he is a competitor, man. He wants to rip your throat out, and I love Donnie Baseball for that. He's prepared as well. I was so fortunate to play under so many good managers. I know I'm missing a couple, and Joe Girardi was outstanding too. Not only was he feisty, he made sure that all his players were prepared too, from the pitching staff to his everyday players. He made sure he got his bench players some time too to make sure his veteran guys got some needed rest. So again, I was very fortunate to play for some great managers.
2009, 2010 had to be a pretty special time in your career. As in 2009, you represented Mexico at the World Baseball Classic alongside your brother Scott, and in 2010, you get to play a full season together on the Padres. What were those experiences like, getting to play with your brother?
Something that we always dreamed about because we never got a chance to do that as kids because I was 4 years older than him. We never played on Little League team together. We didn't play high school ball together. So we always talked about having that opportunity to play together. If it presented itself, we got to take advantage of it, and it did. I had a chance to play together with Team Mexico, represent Team Mexico because my mother is from Mexico, Sonora. We had a blast playing for that team, just a great group of guys, and then getting a chance to play together in San Diego. And it's funny how they asked us, would you want your lockers to be next to each other? And we both said no. And the reason why is because we didn't want it to be about us. We wanted to make sure that we involved everybody, and we made sure that our lockers would be on the opposite ends. Okay? And that way it's about the team. And then sometimes on the road, our lockers would be next to each other because, the visiting clubhouse guy would take care of us. But at home, we made sure our lockers were the exact opposite end. That way, it wasn't about the brothers, it was about the team. And we were very successful that year. We won 90 games. And that whole team with Tony Gwynn Jr., Will Venable, Yorvi Torrealba, Gonzo, Heath Bell, just a great group of guys. And I love playing for that team.
Yeah, Heath Bell's a good friend of the show, and I got to stand in and take some swings against Heath at Met Fantasy Camp. Not something I want to do ever again. You also get in 2009 into your first career postseason game, and you get a hit in your first career postseason at bat. Later scored the winning run in the 13-inning ALCS game on the way to winning a World Series. As a veteran of 11 years in the big at that point, how special was that first taste of the postseason and winning a World Series?
It was extremely special. This is what kind of leader Derek Jeter is. So Derek knew I never played in the postseason, but he knew I was a veteran player. We take ground balls together. He'd take his ground balls, and then I would mix in with him towards the batting practices. And he'd always let me know, hey, you're going to do something great for us in the postseason. And this is in August. This is in September. We ain't in the postseason yet. He would put that in my head. You're going to do something great to help us win. Be ready. You're going to do something great to help us win. He would put that in my head. And then I finally get an opportunity to have an at-bat. And it was in the 13th inning. Before I walk up to the plate, before I walk up on deck, I see Derek. He looked at me, hey, bro, your turn, Ralph. It's your turn. You know? And I walked up to the plate and said, it ain't just me. You know what I'm saying? This is my grandfather. This is for my dad. They didn't really have this type of opportunity I'm having now. So if this was, I would say this is a Hairston at bat. So I was able to get a pitch up in the zone, hit a line drive for a base hit, and then Melky made contact and scored the winning run, and we're up 2-0 in the series. So definitely a special moment for us, Yankee fans and Yankee players. Definitely a special moment for me.
Yeah, Jerry, this is Ryan Sherman. As a Yankee fan, I can definitely confirm that we love hearing those stories. I have a question. I want to kind of juxtapose both Garrett Cole and CC Sabathia. So a lot has been made about both signings, right, how they were both, set in stone to be the ace in the staff. So not Garrett Cole, but do you have any stories about CC Sabathia setting himself above and beyond as really an ace and a leader and someone who you could be like, no, this is our stopper, our guy?
I'll tell you two stories. One is a kind of a funny one. So AJ Burnett, I believe it was AJ, he had found out that I had really good success against CC Sabathia. I always hit him good. So he gave up one home run. Remember that year in 2008 where he was so dominant for Milwaukee in that second half? He was like just off the charts. Before you guys signed in 09, he went nuts in the second half of the Brewers. I believe he gave up one home run, and that home run was to me. I hit him upper tank to Milwaukee. So AJ finds out that I did that. He gets the video, and he puts it on a loop in our clubhouse. and CC Sabathia, we all come in from BP, and he gets heated, just get upset, in a joking way, obviously. Like, I can take that out. I don't want to see that. Take that down. So that was fun. CC always, one of the best guys around, could take a joke. But we knew CC Sabathia was that guy before he put on pinstripes. There's a reason why the Yankees went out and spent all that money, because they had faced him when he was in Cleveland. They saw what he did with Milwaukee. So it was around the league that CC Sabathia is that dude. You know what I'm saying? He's that guy to lead your staff. So when he took the hill, we knew, we were confident we had an incredible chance to win. He would do anything to make sure he gets the 6, 7, 8 innings to give the ball to Mariano Rivera, or at least give us a chance to win. So he's always been that guy, and there's no secret throughout the league, and it was very fortunate that the Yankees were able to get him at the right time, and he was one of the leaders to lead us to a championship in 09.
I got two more for you, Jerry. As someone who was fortunate enough to win a World Series and a former player, if you were a member of the 2017 LA Dodgers, what would you be feeling when you face the Astros, and how much respect would you have for Joe Kelly?
I'll address the Joe Kelly thing first. Your respect level will go up. I think it has. You never want to see anybody hurt, ever, okay? But I think, baseball players have policed themselves for over, 135, 140 years. They've done a pretty good job of that, and I don't think it should change. But the Dodger players in 2017, legacies were changed.
Yep.
Clayton Kershaw's legacy was changed. Justin Turner's, Kenley Jansen, so many incredible players, their legacies were changed because of the 2017 World Series. You know what? I will tell you, they are upset, but they don't feel sorry for themselves. They know, hey, there's nothing they can do about that. They got to go out and put themselves in position this season to figure out a way to win that championship.
Lastly, I know you are a huge Michael Jordan fan and historian, so a 3-part question here. Why Jordan? And then, have you ever spoken to some of the players from the 94 Barons baseball team or his manager, Terry Francona, about Michael's time as a baseball player? And lastly, what did you think of The Last Dance?
Okay. I'll answer this question. My grandfather, Sam, was a coach for the Barons in 94. Grandfather
I did not know that. Wow.
Yes. My grandfather was a coach for the Barons in 94. My grandfather had to drop out of school to support his 12 brothers and sisters because his dad got sick. Okay? My grandfather's probably the hardest working guy I've ever met. No nonsense type of man. And he told me that Michael Jordan is the hardest worker he ever saw. Michael Jordan was all in on being a baseball player, getting to the big leagues. He overworked. He'd get to the ballpark around noon, would hit the cage, go out, hit early, grab a snack, go hit the cage again, have batting practice, and then get a quick snack before game, get a couple of flips before the game, then play the game. He would do that every single day. Okay? And my grandfather said he was the hardest working man he ever saw. My level of respect for Michael Jordan obviously increased because of my grandfather. Guys, Kobe Bryant, incredible player. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, incredible player. LeBron James, incredible player. I got a chance to see Michael Jordan. There has never been an athlete that was more clutch, ever, in sports. At least in the past, 4 decades, 5 decades. Never been an athlete more clutch, okay? This man has never choked. Given him a home field advantage, he was 27-0. Not one time did he choke, okay? Never was outplayed in the series. Even when they lost against the mighty Celtics, if they lost against another team, he never was outplayed. Kobe Bryant has been outplayed in the past. Even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has been outplayed. LeBron James, we know, has been outplayed in certain series in the past. Okay? Michael Jordan never was outplayed. Think about that for a second, man. Nobody dominated the game like Michael Jordan, period. And The Last Dance clearly showed that. It's a different era now. You have 20-year-olds doing load management. 20-year-olds, man. You know what I'm saying? Back when those guys play, I talk to James Worthy all the time. Those guys would get just tackled in the lane. No load management, man. They would play every single day, and they get punished in the lane. It's just a different era. So, Michael Jordan, if you don't think he's the greatest basketball player to lace him up, I can't help you.
Awesome. All right, Jerry, thanks so much for your time tonight. Where's the best place for people to keep up with you on social media these days?
You can find me at The Real J Hair on Twitter and Instagram.
Great stuff. We really appreciate it, Jerry. Thanks for spending so much time with us tonight.
Anytime.
You got it, Jerry Hairston Jr., 2009 World Champion, current member of the Dodgers pre- and post-game show. We're going to wrap it up with the Just Escape Long Island NFL report with Jay Retcher. Just Escape is back, looking for something fun to do with your friends and family after being stuck in the house. Test your problem-solving skills at Just Escape in Massapequa. Visit justscapeli.com to see all of the new safety protocols they put in place and book your room today at justscapeli.com. Hey, Jay, how you doing?
Good, man. How you guys doing over there? I know you missed some hockey already.
Yeah, for sure. But, we hear all these different scenarios with the NFL, and I'm getting a little scared here. I take a look at what keeps shutting down in baseball, and I just don't see how football is going to manage this. We only have about a minute and a half. What are your main concerns about the NFL making it through the entire season?
The biggest concern that I have, Mark, is what the guys are going to do on their own time. And being at Buccaneers camp earlier this week, seeing Tom Brady out there, the guys look, they've been talking a lot about Cheaty McCoy, a lot of the guys over there in Tampa Bay's locker room talking about, hey, this is on us. As much as there's protocols going to be put in place, we have to know that on our downtime, we have to just go home and not be reckless. But, you watch what everybody else is going through. Look at Zach Plesac for the Cleveland Indians. Look at what happened with Laureano and the fight today. It's so hard for baseball players to do it. It's going to be even harder because you have double, if not triple, the amount of people concerned, around the NFL. So I'm with you, man, and I'm hearing that there's going to be some big NCAA news here in the next 12 to 24 hours, and if they cancel the Power 5 and move that to spring, that's going to make me feel a lot worse about there being an NFL season in the fall. Yeah, I agree. Lots of the different conferences are starting to cancel already, so it's going to be interesting. We'll talk more in depth about it next week as some of these camps start opening. Jay Retcher here each and every week with the NFL Report. Hope you enjoyed the show. The podcast of both Jerry Hairston Jr. and Larry Brooks will be up tomorrow, and we'll see everyone next week. Have a good one, everybody.